Hey family, my name is Rochelle and I'm an avid traveler who has been to over 40 countries, including 11 African nations. Recently, I traveled through Africa and it changed my life, and that is why I decided to repatriate to the continent. I chose to move to Nairobi, Kenya. In this video, I'm going to be talking a little bit about my repat journey and why I chose Nairobi, Kenya specifically. So stay tuned. I want to start by talking a little bit about my repat journey because, believe it or not, it started over 5 years ago. Yes, it took over 5 years from the idea that I wanted to move to Africa to me actually buying the plane ticket to permanently move to Africa. And I'm going to get into it because it's a lot of juicy details, okay? So, yeah, back in 2018, 2019, I got the idea that I wanted to move to Africa. And I was specifically inspired by the traveling sister on YouTube. I was obsessed with her videos like back in 2017, 2018. I just loved watching her journey of her having the courage to return to the continent, having to look for a house, going from house to house, looking for the right place for her. She met her boyfriend, they got married, she started a life, she started growing her locks, and I just fell in love with her journey and I was very inspired. So I started telling my family and my friends. I also had a partner at the time. I told him that I wanted to move to Africa, and I got shut down. Like, everybody immediately shut me down and I was very discouraged. My dad basically, I guess maybe as a parent, his first instinct was to put fear into my heart. He was very fearful when I told him that I wanted to return to the continent. When I told him that I was interested in moving to Tanzania, I was about 24 at the time. And I even told him, I was like, I just told you about this idea that I had. I'm super excited. And your first instinct is to just put fear into my heart? And after I told him how I was feeling and I had that conversation with him, he told me, he was like, you're right. I shouldn't have reacted like that. I shouldn't have done that. But he was fearful when I first told him that I wanted to move to the continent. And I just got very discouraged because I didn't have a supportive community in the United States that really saw my vision. And also, I had no resources in Africa. I had zero idea of how to even move to Africa. Mind you, I believe that this was actually before the year of return also. So this was before the year of return. This was before moving to Africa became trendy, became viral, became a little bit more easily accessible. So I had this idea, but I just had no guidance, no resources, and no supportive community. So unfortunately, I had to let the dream die in that moment, but it was still inside of me. I just, instead of moving to Africa, I dedicated myself to studies and I dedicated myself to just educating myself as a Pan-Africanist. But yeah, I wanted to move to Tanzania 5 years ago, but everybody shut me down and I became discouraged, and the rest is history. But my travel journey actually doesn't stop there because a little bit about me, I actually moved abroad for work when I was 18. I moved to Italy, to Europe, and I lived in Europe for over 3 years. So I had already had experience living abroad, but I would say the only difference was I was working for a company who moved everything for me and held my hand through the entire process. So there is a huge difference when you're moving to work with a company versus moving on your own, because that company, like the people that I was working for, took care of everything for me, like everything. So I had experience living abroad, but again, the company held my hand during the entire 3 years. It was a very cushy experience. I didn't have to worry about anything. They took care of my visa. They took care of everything. But I still had interest in moving abroad by myself. So I ended up moving abroad to Latin America. I feel like most Americans who want to dip their toe into living abroad, their first instinct is to go to Mexico. So that's where I went. Mexico is, it's right there. It's right underneath us. So I had moved to Mexico, to Sinaloa, Mazatlan, Sinaloa. and which I know it has a bad reputation because of the Sinaloa cartel and all that stuff. But I had actually found a very small community of people there, and I enjoyed my time there. It's a very beautiful city. It's a very beautiful beach town, and yeah, so I found community there. I enjoyed my time there. But then I started to feel like I wanted to see more and to, branch out a little bit more. So I started traveling through Mexico. Also, in Mexico, as you can imagine, there's a very, very small Black community. So I did kind of yearn to have like that belonging wherever I lived. So I started traveling from North Mexico to South Mexico. And in Oaxaca, that's when I encountered the Afro Mexican diaspora community. And that's when I developed my passion for connecting with the diaspora through Latin America, through the Americas, because, of course, as you know, the entire Americas was impacted by the transatlantic slave trade. So there's Black people riddled throughout the entire Americas from the transatlantic slave trade. So, yes, as I continued on from North America, I went to Central America, and I connected with the Black diaspora in Belize, with the Caribbean people in Belize, in Guatemala. I went to Livingstone, Guatemala, which is the only Black city in Guatemala, and they have a Caribbean culture. So I was able to connect with them. I connected with Hondurans, Nicaraguans, even Costa Ricans have a Caribbean population. They're connected to the Caribbean Sea. So I was able to connect with the Black diaspora in Costa Rica and Puerto Viejo and Limon. And that's when I kind of it opened my eyes like to the fact that everything happens for a reason. I hadn't yet moved to Africa, but I was still connecting with all these different diasporas, in the African diaspora. And eventually I left Central America and I went to Brazil. So after living in North and Central America for a couple years, I went to Brazil and I lived in Brazil for a couple years. I actually lived in Salvador, which has the largest population of Black people outside of Africa. And living there for over a year was truly a life-changing, magical experience. I was able to connect with the Afro-Brazilian population, which has a lot of roots in Nigeria, has very strong Nigerian African cultural influence. I was able to connect with them and live there and just soak in all of the beautiful Afro-Brazilian culture. So I lived in Brazil for a couple years, and now I'm currently in Colombia. So I'm actually in Cali, Colombia, which again is the Blackest city in Colombia. If you're noticing the theme, I like to find the Blackest cities. I like to go where the African diaspora is because that's where the magic is for me. Okay. So yes, I'm currently living in Cali, Colombia, and I am repatriating to Kenya next week. So even though my repat journey didn't happen 5 years ago, I still found a way to connect with my people and connect with the African diaspora and also a little bit of the African population too. And that's why I believe that everything happens for a reason, because if I would have moved to Africa 5 years ago, I probably, honestly, I would have been very lost. I would have literally been lost in the sauce because, again, this was before the year of return, before there was really any resources, any type of guidance, any type of anything. So traveling throughout the Americas and connecting with the African diaspora allowed me to kind of collect so many different perspectives and hear so many stories of how the people, fought, and also see a lot of similarities compared to African American culture. And it was extremely empowering for me. But after living in the Latin America for over 4 years, I do feel like it is time to repatriate to Africa and go to the roots. Okay. So yes, that's just a little bit about my repat journey. And next, I want to talk about why I chose Nairobi, Kenya out of the 11 African nations that I've been to. I want to start by telling you a little bit about my travels throughout the continent. I went on a backpacking adventure. I love adventure. I love travel. That is my passion. I went on a backpack adventure from Southern Africa to North Africa. I started in South Africa, then I went to Lesotho, then Eswatini, then Mozambique, Zimbabwe, Zambia, Malawi, Tanzania, Kenya, and then Ethiopia and Egypt. So 11 nations. And I was also looking for a place to call home during that time. I was based in Brazil, but I was looking for my next place to call home. And there were a couple countries that caught my interest. Of course, like I said, 5 years ago, my original intent was to move to Tanzania. But when I visited Dar es Salaam and also Zanzibar, I really enjoyed it. But I just felt like maybe there was other places that I would have enjoyed living a little bit more. So even though that was my plan 5 years ago, right now, just Tanzania is not right for me right now. All right, where was I? I had to go take my dog for a walk while my battery's charged. That's just life sometimes. But yeah, I was talking about why I chose Kenya. Well, I think I was talking about my travel journey, my first travel journey in Africa. So yes, I traveled from Southern Africa to Northern Africa. And that's what made me fall in love and decide to repatriate, trying to catch it up to speed. But yes, I decided not to move to Tanzania after visiting because I just felt like Kenya was better for me, mainly because I saw how many opportunities was there, and I was really impressed by the art scene and the creative scene. And from what people had told me, Kenya was the best place in East Africa to go for business opportunities. It is known as the hub of East Africa. I believe it's known as the trading hub of East Africa as well. When I went to Ethiopia, they were telling me that Kenya is the best place for business opportunities and collaborations, et cetera, et cetera. So I was really excited about the things that I was hearing in Nairobi. When I traveled to Nairobi, I enjoyed my experience, especially the fashion. I went to Eastleigh, the fashion district. I got custom made clothes. And that's one of the things that really attracted me, hearing all the East Africans talk about how everybody is flocking to Nairobi for business, for the creative industry, for the art industry, which is my niche. I am a creative. I'm a content creator. I'm a digital marketer. I have a travel agency. So those are all the things that I dip my toes in already. So I was super excited to see what opportunities I could find in Nairobi. Also, one thing that really attracted me to Nairobi specifically is the trade schools and the colleges. I believe that they do have some of the best colleges in East Africa. For me specifically, I'm interested in the trade schools. I saw that they had a trade school for digital marketing. They had a course for digital marketing, graphic design, even fashion design, which is something that I have always wanted to get into. Pursuing fashion design, learning how to make my own clothes is on my bucket list. Like that is one of my life goals. So I was very interested in the trade schools and the courses that they offered, and they seem to be at a fairly affordable price as well. So I am interested once I get settled down, like, and I'm done traveling for at least about a year or so. I do want to attend the trade schools and see what Kenya has to offer in that regard as well. Also, another thing that I really loved was the friendly and welcoming community. I was interested in moving to South Africa, but it just didn't sit right, like completely in my spirit. I was very conflicted, and I just believe that you really have to trust that feeling and trust your intuition, trust your discernment. There was a reason I was feeling iffy about it, and I think that it was mainly because just gonna be honest, the xenophobia. I did experience some xenophobia, even as an African American. I saw how other Africans were treated in South Africa. And like, for example, Zimbabweans, I had more than one Zimbabwean tell me about their negative experiences and tell me about how people are getting, killed. I mean, I'm just going to say it, like Zimbabweans have gotten murdered in South Africa and they don't feel like comfortable living there. They're not able to have friends and build community there. So hearing about not only other people's experiences, but experiencing it as well just didn't sit right in my spirit. But I was very interested in living in South Africa, at a moment in time. But I chose Nairobi because the people were genuinely friendly, genuinely hospitable, and very welcoming, which is the type of energy that I need in my life, okay? Also, one thing that I love about Kenya is that it is close to other countries that I'm interested in. I'm interested in also maybe branching out to Kampala. And also, I'm very interested in Ethiopia. I fell in love with Ethiopia when I visited. So I am going to be frequenting Ethiopia as much as I can. It's also close to Tanzania, which is also another large area for repats. So it's close to other countries where I could see myself doing business or connecting with other communities or just traveling, because I genuinely love traveling in Tanzania, Kenya, and Ethiopia. That's why I say I'm a East Africa baddie. Okay, I'm an East Africa babe, honestly. East Africa stole my heart. Also, another reason why I chose to repat to Kenya is the easy visa and also dog importation. I do have a dog, so I wasn't about to give up my dog just to travel or move to Africa. So bringing my dog was very important to me. And Kenya has very reasonable importation requirements. All they require is the rabies test and a health certificate, and you're allowed to import your dog, which is very doable for me. I didn't have any problems with that. There were other countries that require you to quarantine your dog for like 30 days or 15 days. And that's just something that I was not interested in. Personally, I don't want to have to quarantine my dog, and just put her through that. Like, I don't even know. It's not even going to be a comfortable environment for her. She's going to be quarantining in like a small kennel. That was not something that I was interested in. But Kenya does not require dogs to quarantine. They just require the rabies test, which I already have. And I already have everything that I need for Diamond to go to, Kenya with me, my dog. So I was very happy about that. Also, the visas are very easy to get. Which I believe they call the electronic travel authorization. They actually have a 5-year ETA, which was very convenient for me. So I'm going to be saving a lot of money by investing in that rather than spending $50 every time I want to enter to Kenya. It's $172 for a 5-year ETA. So I was very happy about that as well. And the ETA works for me right now because I travel a lot. So I'm probably going to be in and out of Kenya every 6 months or so already. So the ETA works for me. So the last thing is, which I already touched on a little bit, there is so much to explore in Kenya, so much that I want to explore. I was only in Kenya for 2 weeks. I was in Mombasa and Nairobi, and that is only a drop in the bucket compared to how much Kenya has to offer. And I'm genuinely excited to continue exploring Kenya and going to all the safaris and really immersing in the culture. I actually already have a Swahili professor. I've been learning or I believe it's called Kiswahili. That's isiZulu. I believe it's called Kiswahili. So I already have a professor and I've been learning Swahili. I already know a little bit of Swahili, but I really want to just try to be conversational because I know that that can help, especially when it comes to like business collaborations and really immersing myself in the culture. So these are the reasons why I chose Kenya and a little bit about my repat journey. I'm super excited for the future. I'm also going to be making a vlog of me actually moving to Kenya. So stay tuned for that. I'm moving to Kenya next week. Just be patient with me. It's a big transition for me and my dog. So after I get settled down, I'm going to be putting that vlog out. And I'm just super excited for the future. This has been a 5-year journey. It's overdue, but I'm finally repatriating to Africa. And I am so excited for the future. I'm so excited to see what life has to offer. And I really want you guys to come along with the journey with me. So don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.